My husband got my sister pregnant while I was away on a business trip. Now her husband kicked her out, she's begging for my help, and he's acting like it's not a big deal. For 10 years, my husband, Ryan, and I built a life that I thought was solid. We had our ups and downs, like any couple, but he was my rock, steady, reliable, and the one person I believed would always have my back. When work required me to take frequent business trips, Ryan assured me he'd hold things down at home. I trusted him completely, never questioning his commitment to me or our marriage. But one trip would change everything, shattering the foundation of the life we'd built together. The trip was supposed to be just another routine business conference, nothing out of the ordinary. I'd be gone for 3 days, meeting clients, reviewing contracts, and networking. Ryan had always been supportive, and even though I was away a lot, I never once doubted his loyalty. He was the kind of man who wouldn't even glance at another woman, let alone betray me. At least, that's what I thought. The first day of the trip was uneventful. I spent hours in meetings, catching up on emails, and trying to stay focused. But as the hours wore on, something felt off. A subtle, nagging sensation that I couldn't shake. I brushed it aside, telling myself it was just the stress of work or the loneliness of being away from home. I missed Ryan. I missed the comfort of his presence, the sound of his voice when he called to check in. But when I returned home that Thursday evening, the tension in the air was palpable. The moment I stepped through the front door, something felt different. The house, which had always felt warm and inviting, seemed eerily cold. Ryan was sitting on the couch, his eyes glued to the TV, but there was a strange distance in his gaze, something I hadn't seen before. It wasn't the usual welcoming smile or the excited hug I was accustomed to. He didn't even get up to greet me. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual as I set down my suitcase. He glanced at me briefly, offering a stiff smile. "Hey, babe. How was the trip?" "Fine," I replied, not fully understanding why I felt uneasy. "Just the usual. Busy, but good. How about you?" "Same," he said, his voice flat. "Nothing special." I frowned, sensing the unease between us, but I couldn't place why. I thought maybe it was just the stress of his day or something he hadn't shared yet. We'd been through rough patches before, but this felt different, like there was something beneath the surface, something he wasn't saying. I shrugged it off, telling myself I was overthinking things. It wasn't until later that night, when I went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, that the truth came crashing down. I had just opened the cupboard when I heard the unmistakable sound of a text message pinging on Ryan's phone. It was the tone he'd set for messages from people other than me, short, quick, almost dismissive. I froze, my hand hovering over the tea kettle. It was strange. Ryan never left his phone unattended. It was always with him, like a lifeline. But now, it was sitting on the coffee table, abandoned. Curiosity gnawed at me, but I pushed it aside. Trust. That's what we had. Trust in each other. But as I walked back into the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Ryan's phone was still buzzing, as if it were waiting for me to take notice. I glanced at him, hoping he wouldn't see the flicker of suspicion in my eyes. He was still staring at the TV, seemingly absorbed in whatever mindless show he was watching. I hesitated, then slowly walked over to the coffee table, pretending to adjust the throw pillow on the couch. I caught a glimpse of the phone screen. There, in plain view, was a message that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The sender's name was Sophie, a name I didn't recognize. The message read, "I miss you. Can't wait to see you again soon." My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. Sophie? Who was Sophie? My breath quickened, my pulse pounding in my ears. The words blurred before my eyes, but I could still read them clearly. "Can't wait to see you again soon." I felt my legs go weak beneath me. I slowly turned to look at Ryan, who was still oblivious, his attention fully consumed by the TV. I wanted to scream, to confront him, but the words stuck in my throat. My world was crumbling, and I couldn't bring myself to ask the one question that would shatter everything. Who was Sophie? The rest of the night passed in a haze. I couldn't focus on anything, my mind kept returning to that message. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the words flashing in front of me. I pretended to go through the motions, as if everything were normal. We ate dinner in silence, the weight of the unspoken words between us thick and suffocating. I couldn't bring myself to ask him about the message, but I knew I couldn't let it go. That night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts were consumed by one thing: betrayal. I kept replaying the message over and over in my head, each time imagining the worst. My husband, the man I trusted more than anyone, was hiding something from me, something big. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew I had to find out. The next morning, I couldn't wait any longer. I had to confront him. "Ryan," I said, my voice barely a whisper as I stood in front of him in the kitchen. "Who is Sophie?" His face went pale, and for a split second, I thought I saw guilt flash across his features. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by an almost defensive look. He didn't answer immediately, and that silence spoke volumes. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice unsteady. I crossed my arms, trying to steady my shaking hands. "I saw the message." "Who is Sophie?" Ryan looked away, clearly struggling with what to say. His eyes darted around the room, avoiding mine. He let out a sigh, and I saw the weight of his guilt pressing down on him. "Look, it's not what you think," he said, his voice strained. "It was just a mistake. A stupid mistake." I felt the floor fall out from under me. "Look, it's not what you think," Ryan said, his voice strained. "It was just a mistake. A stupid mistake." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The words felt like a slap to my face. I had spent the last 10 years trusting him, believing in us, and now, in a single moment, it was all unraveling. A mistake? I couldn't even begin to understand what he meant. A mistake? I echoed, my voice shaking with disbelief. A mistake? You think cheating on me is a mistake? Ryan's face flushed with guilt, and for a brief second, he looked like the man I once knew, the man I thought would never betray me. But the silence that followed spoke louder than anything he could have said. He was avoiding my eyes, his hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt, as if trying to find a way out of the mess he had created. "Who is she, Ryan?" I demanded, my voice trembling but firm. "Who is Sophie?" He sighed, looking defeated, like the weight of his own lies was too much to bear. She's someone I met. It was just one time. It meant nothing, I swear. I don't know what I was thinking." I stared at him, trying to make sense of his words, but they didn't add up. One time? A single mistake? If that were true, why did he look so torn, so guilty? Why was he acting like it was something bigger than he was willing to admit? "You're telling me that one mistake is all it was?" I asked, my voice dangerously low, the hurt now mixing with anger. "What about everything else? What about us?" Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at the screen, my breath catching in my throat when I saw the name, Mia. My sister. I froze. I hadn't heard from Mia in days, and her message now felt like an omen. "I need to talk to you. Can you come over?" I swallowed hard, feeling a lump form in my throat. I didn't know why, but something in the tone of her message made my skin crawl. It wasn't just a request, it was a cry for help. "I need to go," I said to Ryan, barely meeting his gaze. My mind was racing, and I knew I couldn't process this conversation any longer. I had to go to Mia. Without waiting for a response, I grabbed my bag and rushed out the door, my thoughts spinning in a whirlpool of confusion and anger. What had I just learned about Ryan? And what could Mia possibly need from me? As I drove toward my sister's apartment, the pieces of my life felt like they were falling apart faster than I could keep up. Little did I know, the moment I stepped into Mia's world, the web of betrayal would grow even more tangled, and my life would change forever. As I pulled into Mia's parking lot, my heart was pounding in my chest. The air felt thick, heavy with anticipation and dread. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that this wasn't just a casual visit. I quickly got out of the car, my mind racing with 1,000 questions. What could Mia possibly want from me right now? What was going on in her life? I rang the doorbell and waited, my hands clammy. When the door finally opened, I was met with the sight of Mia standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy, as though she'd been crying for hours. My stomach sank. This was more than just a conversation. "Mia?" I whispered, stepping inside. "What's going on?" She took a deep breath, and then, in a rush, she said the words that shattered my world even further. "I'm pregnant, and Ryan is the father." I froze. Her words echoed in my ears, but they didn't make sense. Pregnant? Ryan? The father? No, that can't be, I whispered, the reality of what she was saying slowly sinking in. Mia's face crumpled as she nodded, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted this to happen. I didn't plan for any of this. But it did, and now I don't know what to do. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. My sister. My husband. The two people I loved most in the world, connected in a way I never could have imagined. The betrayal wasn't just in the form of Ryan's infidelity, it was now tied to Mia, the person I had always trusted, the person I thought I could always count on. "Mia, why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice shaking with disbelief. "Why didn't you say anything sooner?" She looked away, guilt and shame flooding her expression. "I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you. I was afraid of what it would do to our family, to everything we've built." I couldn't breathe. The weight of her confession crushed me, and I felt my chest tighten with the force of it. How could this be happening? How could my life, my marriage, be spiraling out of control in such a short time? "I don't know what to do," Mia said, her voice cracking. "I can't stay with Mark, he kicked me out when he found out. And I can't go back to Ryan. I don't even know where to go from here." The room felt like it was closing in on me. I had to make a choice, but it wasn't a simple one. I couldn't ignore what Ryan had done. But how could I turn my back on my sister? The betrayal, the lies, the confusion, it all felt too much to bear. And yet, in the midst of the storm, Mia was still my sister, the one person who had always been there for me, even if she had hurt me in the worst way possible. But could I forgive her? Could I forg? I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked over to the window. The weight of the decision pressed down on me. My life was no longer just about my marriage, it was about everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in. "I don't know what to do either, Mia," I said softly, my voice filled with pain. "But I'll help you figure it out. We'll figure it out. Somehow." The days that followed were a blur. My world, once solid and predictable, had fractured beyond recognition. Ryan's betrayal, Mia's pregnancy, Mark's anger, it was all too much to process in such a short span of time. I spent hours on the phone with Mia, trying to help her navigate the chaos, but every conversation only seemed to deepen my confusion. I still didn't know how to face Ryan, how to look at him without seeing the image of him with my sister, or the lies he'd fed me for so long. I tried to convince myself that helping Mia was the right thing to do. After all, she was my sister. But as time passed, the guilt gnawed at me. Should I really be supporting her? Wasn't she just as much of a traitor as Ryan? I hated the way I felt, torn between two people I loved, both of whom had betrayed me in different ways. One evening, after a particularly tense phone call with Mia, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to talk to Ryan, to get answers, to understand why everything had spiraled out of control. I had to know what he felt, what he thought, and whether there was any hope for us, whether there was any chance of salvaging what we once had. When I got home, Ryan was sitting in the living room, his eyes vacant, his posture slumped in defeat. The man I had once known as my steady, unwavering partner seemed like a shadow of himself. His gaze flickered up when I entered, but he didn't speak. "I need to know the truth," I said, my voice calm but filled with an underlying rage. "Why? Why did you do this to me?" To us. Ryan swallowed hard, his eyes filled with regret. I don't have an excuse, and I don't expect you to forgive me. But I'm sorry, more than you'll ever know. I felt a wave of nausea rise in my chest. Sorry doesn't fix this, Ryan. You've destroyed everything. You've destroyed me. He nodded, his voice breaking. I know. I can't undo it. I never thought it would get this far. It was a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. I looked at him, my heart heavy with pain. The man I had loved for so long, the man who had promised me everything, was broken, just like I was. But his brokenness didn't change the truth. It didn't change the fact that he had hurt me in ways I could never fully heal from. I don't know what to do, I whispered, my voice cracking. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Ryan's face crumpled. I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I swear it. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. But I also didn't know if I could turn my back on the life we had built together. The memories, the love, the years we spent, could I really just throw it all away? I don't know if I can forgive you, Ryan, I said quietly. But I need to think. I need time to figure this out. He nodded, understanding the weight of my words. As I turned to leave the room, I caught a glimpse of Mia's text on my phone. She was waiting for me, hoping for my help, hoping for something, anything, to make things right. But how could I help her when I couldn't even help myself? The truth was, there was no easy answer. There was no clear path forward. My life had become a maze of betrayal, guilt, and confusion. But as I stood there, torn between my love for my sister and my husband, one thing became clear: I had to find a way to heal. Not just for them, but for me. The choice wasn't about forgiving Ryan or Mia, it was about forgiving myself for allowing myself to be hurt in the first place. It was about rebuilding the pieces of my life, no matter how shattered they were. In the end, the only thing I could control was how I moved forward. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that the path to healing began with me, my choices, my strength, and my decision to take back my life.